We have a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order. Let's do a roll call.
Sure. Mr. Witherspoon,
Here.
Miss Wells,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Cantor,
Here.
Mr. Goldstein,
Here.
Mr. Rowena,
Here.
Mr. Mancini, and Mr. Schulman.
Here.
I think I got everybody.
Okay. Then I'd ask at this time that the only person who we should be seeing video from other than the commission members is Attorney Waters right now. I'd ask that those of you who are not the first item on the agenda, if you would please stop your video. And when your item comes up, you can restart your video. Okay, review and action on pending applications, 3-96 SPR / number 8-97 SPR 45 Glover. Request for a further temporary modification and release until June 15th, 2021 of the condition requiring 2 police officers to control traffic signalization. Attorney Waters?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, David Waters, General Counsel at Building and Land Technology. You may remember that this was in front of you a few months ago. There is a condition of approval that actually relates back to when Hewitt was approved at 45 Glover, that because there was a potential for backing up of traffic on Glover Avenue out to Main Avenue in the afternoon hours, that the property owner is required to provide 2 police officers, one up at the Main Avenue and Glover Avenue intersection, and one at the on-grade crossing on Glover Avenue of the Metro North Danbury branch line. And that has been in place for quite a number of years. We came to you a few months ago saying that because of the COVID pandemic, there's nobody in the office buildings, and so therefore there's nobody for the police officers to be concerned about and the possibility of backing up over the tracks. And you were gracious enough to agree that we therefore could temporarily be relieved of that condition of approval, but would come back to you and we would see where we stood at about this time. So we're back at this time. What I can report is that the office tenants are still not back in the office and do not have any foreseeable timetable to come back. I did ask our property management just for some figures so that you would know exactly where we are. The average number of employees that are at 901, which is occupied by GE, is approximately 50 to 60 each day for that entire building. The number of employees at 45 Glover between FactSet and Terex is somewhere between 13 and 19 people for the entire building. 801 Glover is vacant. You may recall that that was occupied by Diageo and their lease has expired and they've moved out. 20 Glover for the entire building, there's about 25 to 35 people on a daily basis. And that's there are a number of tenants that are in there. And 10 Glover is empty. So all in all, we're talking about a maximum of about 115 cars per day for the entire Towers and Merritt on the River complex, which certainly does not require any kind of assistance at the on-grade parking, on-grade train crossing. So that being said, we have requested that the waiver of that obligation be continued. As I said, there is no current intent by any of the tenants to move back in at any time in the foreseeable future. we picked an arbitrary date of June 15th. We would agree to the same condition that we did last time, which is that if something changes, if one of the tenants says that they do intend to move in April 15th or something that's sort of like that, we would come back and notify the commission and determine whether at that point it was appropriate to reinstitute the obligation or not. But certainly for the foreseeable future, there's no need.
Well, as pleasant as it is to see you here from time to time, I think we'd like to see you less frequently, at least on this matter. And I would suggest that we push you back at least until August 15th. Again, should something come up, you're going to inform us. So I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I'd like to hear from the other commissioners.
I agree with that.
It's month.
Yeah, sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Absolutely.
Yep.
If that's acceptable to you,
Certainly is to us. Thank you very much.
Steve, do we need a formal action on this?
I think someone can make a motion and get a second and then just take a vote on it.
Okay,
So moved.
okay. Frank moves. There a second?
Second.
Josh, both Josh and Michael seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let's raise our hands. All right, that looks like it's unanimous. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Now, Steve, you wanted to talk briefly about perhaps scheduling for the other project.
Correct.
Glover?
Correct. I've had some discussions with Attorney Waters. They have revised the new traffic submittal based on our last discussion, which was probably several months ago on the project. I was talking with Attorney Waters specifically about next steps in terms of looking at the traffic and then the broader planning part of it, and had, in terms of peer review and scheduling. So first question, which is the easy one, who amongst the commissioners would like actual hard copies of the traffic report? Otherwise, we can just post it to our site and you can look at it at your leisure.
Are you warmed up now?
Again, I'd like a hard copy. I'm happy to come pick it up at City Hall.
Yeah, I think I'd like a hard copy and you can drop it down to Stuart's office.
Sure.
Thank you.
So maybe 4, Dave, is that doable?
As many as you want. We're happy to save trees, but on the other hand, if people want the hard copies, we're happy to make as many of them as you wish.
I'll have one for the file and there's an extra that way if we do 4.
All right. Perfect.
And the other part of it had to do with how we move forward with the applications. We were talking today about looking at the results of the updated study in conjunction with having DeCarlo and Dahl's traffic folks take another look at that as well. As you recall, the idea was that they were going to take the DOT modeling and input their data into that and then see what the results are. And then we could move forward with the next phase, which really got into the details of the design and how you wanted to see the layout of the master plan develop. So Dave, correct me if I'm misremembering, but maybe we were thinking get an updated estimate of time and money from DeCarlo and Dahl on the traffic peer review, and then set a date to have that discussion with the commission.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense, is that we will provide this updated traffic analysis, and then it would be referred to your consultants so that they could review it, and then we would be able to have a discussion, kind of as a comprehensive discussion as opposed to a piecemeal one, as to the whole traffic aspect of it. But we're amenable however you'd wish to do it.
So Steve, what are we looking at? Late March or early April?
I think so, yeah, because the next meeting is March 4th, I believe, and that would be kind of quick, I would imagine, for their peer review guy. I had a brief email exchange with Bob Griswold's today, so I'll hopefully have tomorrow. I can, as soon as I get the electronic submittal from Attorney Waters, I'll forward that right over to them, and at least they can give me an idea of the scope, cost, and time frame to turn it around.
That sounds good. So we should expect to see the hard copies. What is today, Wednesday, perhaps early next week?
I would think so, Mr. Chairman. What I'll do is once I had the direction as to how many to create, I'll make sure that Tig and Bond prepares those. And it'll take them a couple of days, and assuming that they don't get snowed in tomorrow, I'm assuming that they'll be able to do that, and we'll be able to get them to you early next week.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. And that's number 7-19 SPR /10-19 CAM 320 Wilson Avenue. Bond release request for 45,800 square foot industrial warehouse and manufacturing building. Again, Steve, if you'd update us on that, as I recall, that's the building on Wilson where we had asked that they put up the stone retaining wall and a soundproofing wall above that.
Correct. This was the part of the former Grasso properties that was a piece that was carved off. It was basically I wouldn't call it a hill, but a mound of earth and material that was removed. The site was leveled. A new building was installed there. There's parking, ample parking on both sides of the building into the rear. Landscaping was installed per the plan at the front of the building. And at the rear, you did require, there was a retaining wall that was constructed. And I think the concerns mainly came from the Village Creek residents. There was a retaining wall constructed with a fence on top of that. And the applicant did install soundproofing kind of additional screen material at the rear, which came out really nice. And I think will, deaden any impacts from noise that may have been generated from the site. The applicant, I believe they're on the call if you wanted any questions. They may have some tenants, or they may be selling the property, but the site was completed per the requirements of the commission.
Okay. Questions from commission members?
And
All right.
there was a resolution that was sent out this afternoon. It was pretty short, but there was one sent out.
Right. Can we pull that up?
I will attempt to do that because I'm working on my laptop with another monitor, and sometimes that doesn't always work very well. Let me see.
Okay.
Oh, here, hopefully me.
If not,
You see-
you got it?
Oh, there it is.
You got it? Okay. Good.
Yes. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So move.
To motion for Mr. Witherspoon, a second.
Second.
Second for Mr., I think Mr. Johnson got in there first. Any discussion? All right, if not, let's do a quick roll call on this one.
Certainly. Ms. Wells,
Yes,
Mr. Rowena, yeah, you're muted, Dick. Okay, I'll come back. Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Witherspoon,
Yes.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Goldstein,
Yes.
Mr. Rowena,
Yes.
and Mr. Schulman.
Yes,
Okay, 7-4.
okay. The motion has been approved unanimously. Let's move on to the next item on our agenda, review and action on a new application That's 2021-05 CAM, William G. Cooling, 35 Rowayton Avenue. Raise and reconstruct new single-family residence. And who is representing the property owner?
Good evening, Dean Martin with Grumman Engineering.
Okay.
I'm going to be presenting the application on behalf of the applicant Brian Kirschner and the owner William Cooling. This is a 0.32 acre parcel situated on the west side of Rowayton Avenue. It's bounded on the west by the 5 Mile River. Currently, there is a single family dwelling on the property. A property is partially within the FEMA A15 zone and the V15 zone. That zone line is just to the west of the existing dwelling. The coastal jurisdiction line follows a stone wall or a seawall, which is located further to the west of the property. The proposal for this property, for this location, is to raise the existing dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling in the same, almost identical footprint. The new building will be raised up with a finished floor elevation of 17.0, which will get it well above the flood elevation. The existing dwelling finished floor is approximately 14.4 elevation. The property is served by both municipal water and sewer. We went through the stormwater analysis based on the city's Public Works stormwater management or stormwater manual, excuse me. And a stormwater retention system has been proposed, which consists of 6 Coltech units located at the southeast corner of the new building, which will be sized to contain the increased runoff. Actually, it'll be sized to contain the water quality volume of the increased impervious surface. Because we're located within a flood zone adjacent to 5 Mile River, which is titled this location, stormwater retention for the entire impervious area is not practical, is not warranted by Public Works. Sediment and erosion controls have been shown on the plan, consisting of siltation fencing, anti-tracking pad at the entrance. These will both be maintained throughout the length of the construction. We have received approvals from both the WPCA and the DPW for our plan. That's essentially it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from commission members?
The only question I had is in the stormwater, the 5 Mile Commission raised the point on the runoff. Do you guys have any response to that?
What was the question?
This is in the letter that they sent through.
This is the second page of the letter.
Yeah. Where is it? The commission regarding the application environmental impact in the 5 Mile River.
Michelle, can you pull that up maybe?
Yeah, sorry. I just want to check with staff. Is there anything outstanding in this deed that is of concern?
Well, we in our drainage, I'm sorry, in our drainage analysis, we did review the 2 through the 100-year storm events, and there is a 0 increase or a slight decrease in all storm events based on the city's requirements.
Okay, I just wanted to check with the staff if there's anything out of this worth of flagging.
Yeah, I saw their comments. Typically, I know they were concerned about like their lack of landscaping plan. Typically for the typical CAM, we don't require a landscaping plan, but I think what they had provided is gonna suffice for what we typically see, but on top of their drainage analysis and all that, so.
Thank you.
Great.
Any other questions? I have to say, I was a little surprised, the house that's being torn down. I mean, I understand that it's 3 feet lower than the new building will be, but it's a relatively new building itself. But that's not our purview here, unfortunately. All right, well, this is, Steve, if I'm correct, this is a CAM site plan review. Just requires a simple vote on our part to approve it.
Correct.
Okay. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, Josh moves. Second.
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 Okay, Michael second. Rod second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Let's raise hands. And it looks like everybody's hand is up. Looks like it's approved unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to next item. Discussion of other items. 10-15 SPR, Tucker Management LLC, 467 Connecticut Avenue, discussion of traffic issues at Chick-fil-A. I believe we have someone here representing Chick-fil-A.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the record, this is Liz Succi. I'm a partner at Carmody, Torrance, Sandeck, and Hennessy, as you know. And on the call this evening is also Natalie Knowles, property management representative, Chick-fil-A, Archer Bullock, who is the franchisee at the site, and James Spitzer, who is director of real estate, existing restaurants for Chick-fil-A. Thank you for having us before you this evening. I know that there have been concerns raised and questions, and it's come to you, I think, through both the Deputy Police Chief Walsh and others of the issues related to the site. And it's largely due, and I'm sure everyone would imagine, to COVID and the issues that COVID has created for businesses such as this and others. If you give me just a minute or two so I can let those commissioners who were not on the board back in 2015 and 2016 when this was approved, just a little bit of background. The property is owned by the Jostle Corporation, and that corporation has members who are of the Valerie family, who used to have Valerie Trucking at this site and next door. The property is just shy of an acre and a half. It's bordered by Connecticut I-95 to the south. There's another parcel to the west with wetlands on it. Connecticut Avenue is on the north side, and then Rampart Road is on the eastern side of the property. Prior to the construction of Chick-fil-A, many of you might remember that it was the site of Cook's Nook, the restaurant kitchen supply company. And also in the back, it was also used to store porta-johns and school buses and trucks and all sorts of other stuff that was somewhat of a thorn in the city's side for many years. So in 2015 and 2016, when this project was presented not only to this commission, but also to the Conservation Commission, it resulted in the redevelopment of the site into what would eventually be a two-story Chick-fil-A building, which exists today, and 58 parking lot around the building. There's also a pad that was approved in the back for a two-story furniture store, which was never constructed. As part of the site plan review application, in addition to the survey and the architectural plans, civil engineering plans, there was a full traffic study undertaken by Langen Engineering, which was the engineering firm of record. And that study was reviewed by the City of Norwalk Department of Public Works. The Traffic and Mobility Parking Department had not been created at the time that this application proceeded before you. And I think at the time that we went to hearing, the only members that are currently sitting on this commission who were sitting at that time were Mr. Witherspoon and Mr. Johnson. I think all of the others were not sitting members at that time. Perhaps Ms. Wells was, but I don't think so. Chick-fil-A then opened in 2015, and following the initial interest and excitement of its opening and some activity at that time, it calmed down and it functioned in the way that it should have through 2017, up to beginning of 2020. And I think the problem was created by virtue of COVID. Certainly no one in 2015 or 2016 would have been able to predict that a pandemic, the likes of which we've never seen in our lifetime, would befall us. And certainly that was not part of any traffic analysis for this site. The traffic analysis was typical of what you saw. There were no off-site improvements that were required. But then we come to 2020 and we're starting to have issues. I think the issue that seems to be most problematic is Friday, Saturday afternoons, particularly Saturdays, when folks are out and about, and now especially that we're feeling a little bit more liberated and desirous of getting out of our homes and get out and about. So what did my client do in connection with that? Well, the first thing they did was to hire Norwalk Police Department off-duty police officers with extra duty jobs, those jobs that were taken by the officers, to try to help mitigate and manage some of the traffic issues that emerged. As you know, Chick-fil-A is closed on Sundays. That's a corporate policy nationwide. So the issue seems to be Friday and Saturday. In addition, following discussions between staff and Chick-fil-A representatives, there was a suggestion to kind of reroute traffic on a temporary basis that comes to the site. The customers no longer would come directly into the site and make a right into the two drive aisles to come to the drive-through, but the traffic has been rerouted, and that's the two plans that were submitted into the site, around the back toward where next to where I-95 and the state right-of-way is, and then circle through the driveway and then come into the drive aisles so as to give additional stacking room and queuing space. That was not what was approved originally, but since the Chick-fil-A franchise is closed to the public for indoor dining, they were able to accommodate that for the time being to help address the traffic issues that seem to arise on Fridays and Saturdays. I've been in touch last week with Chief Kahalik of the police department and Mike Yosak, and they both recognize that COVID has a large impact on the issues and the situations that exist today. And our discussions were very frank, but I also asked them if they had any other suggestions, that they share them with us, and we would certainly consider, evaluate, and implement those suggestions that would be beneficial not only to my client, but also to the traffic patterns and the situation that exists today. Police officers continue to be hired for extra duty work on Fridays and Saturdays. And as I indicated, that configuration as to how traffic comes into the site and circulates along the right-of-way and then through the parking lot to the drive-through, that has been implemented. And that was partially, I think, a suggestion by Brian Baker of the Planning and Zoning Office. So my client continues to evaluate whatever operational efficiencies there might be for better operation at the site. And they're also evaluating options for the site as a whole to mitigate traffic issues moving forward. And as those plans are further developed, we will certainly share them with staff. And if the need arises that we need to return to this commission with applications or other filings, we'll certainly do that. At this stage, we welcome any suggestions that you have, that the staff has, so that we can address the concerns raised on an immediate basis, on a temporary basis. And hopefully, as we move out of our year and plus of COVID, the situation will resolve itself to some extent once folks are able to freely move about, that Chick-fil-A opens for indoor dining, and that we kind of return to the normal pre-March 2020. We're happy to answer questions, but we, like you, we meaning Chick-fil-A and the franchisee, are desirous of making sure that not only does the customer coming to the site have a safe and pleasurable experience, but that it doesn't impact the roadway system any more than we can handle. And that's what we're working on today.
Mr. Chairman, staff kind of, just to throw it out there, we haven't shared this with the applicant. Staff drew up a modified sketch based on what they submitted. You want me to pull that up quick?
Please.
Can you see that?
We can. Can you enlarge it a little bit?
Sure.
Stephen, is this back in front of us because there was some condition on the original approval or something like that? I was just trying to understand, why is this
So
necessary?
there was a requirement when the application was approved that they provide a follow-up traffic study. I don't believe that was ever submitted. So we had gotten complaints not quite a year ago, but it probably getting pretty close to a year ago, that came in initially from the police department about backup and queuing related to Chick-fil-A. And I understand this is not like a local phenomenon. I guess that happens other areas as well. So we had reached out to them to see if they could come up with some solutions. And then the complaints got louder, especially as COVID proceeded, as Attorney Suchi indicated.
Steve, when you said a year ago, are you saying before the pandemic began?
I can't recall. I had a conversation with the chief, and I don't remember when that was. My first email contact was May of last year.
Okay. Attorney Suchi, I saw in your letter, it said it should be noted, however, from time to time, the police officer job goes unfilled by the police department. How often is a police officer there versus not? Is there a log? Anything we can get a sense?
As the job is posted for Fridays and Saturdays. As far as exactly how many of those days over the course of the past 9 or 12 months have gone unfilled, I don't know. I can find that out. But we have posted the job with the police department for every week. And the hope is that some officer or officers would take that job as an extra duty job. But if you'd like me to find out how often it's gone unfilled, I'd be happy to do that. I'll find out from the chief.
I was just curious. I didn't know if other commissioners feel the same way.
Almost every weekend when I'm on Connecticut Avenue, because I live very close to Connecticut Avenue, I do see a police officer stationed there where Rampart Road meet Connecticut Avenue due to the traffic issue right there.
The image that Mr. Kleppen provided to you as to what the staff's idea was, which we're just seeing, is very similar to what we do now. But again, we're happy to look at that and see if that makes more sense than what we're doing today, and take that into consideration with what other ideas that are being generated in-house on our end.
I have a question for that traffic pattern. Obviously, you just looked at staffs, but you said you're doing something similar. How many cars can that fill? And what is the average amount of cars that you get during peak hours? Like, if we devise a new plan, will it hold this overflow, or will we still have traffic issues?
I think at this point, the original plan had stacking maybe for between the 2 lanes. Now you have to remember there were 2 lanes and then they converged into 1 lane for the pickup. And those 2 lanes were rather short. If there was stacking enough for a total of maybe 10 to 12 vehicles approaching the drive-through, that was all that was there. I could be off a little bit, but it wasn't a very large stacking or queuing length once you came into the site. Right now, the configuration that we're using stacks probably in excess of 50 cars coming around into the site, making a left, swinging behind the parking spaces, traveling westbound along the property line, and then coming back in front of the building and getting into the drive-through aisles. It's probably in excess of 50 cars.
And at peak hour, how many cars would you believe come through there? Would you have, let's say, 30 at any given time at peak, or would you be closer to 60?
Mr. Mancini, I don't have that specific number for the peak right now. Again, if that's information that you would find helpful, we can certainly look at that. But even the traffic study for the original application didn't analyze the stacking at the peak hour just for the drive-through. It was levels of service for the site in general and what those levels of service generated at Rampart Road and Connecticut Avenue. But I can certainly, we can certainly see if we can give you that information, what the peak is at that, at the peak lunch hour and the peak dinner hour. One of the issues in addition to COVID is this is the only Chick-fil-A around. The closest one is in Danbury and one in Brookfield. So folks really, really like this product, and they also really like the customer service that goes along with it. So while it's very, very popular, that coupled with the fact that it's not open inside for in-seating dining, and there's 126 seats inside that could be used, and there's just this facility and this configuration that we have, coupled with COVID, it makes it very challenging for us. But we look to any further suggestions the staff has. We'll certainly take a look at what Mr. Kleppen provided and see how that works. Maybe that works better than what we're doing. And there are also other options that we're evaluating now, which maybe a combination of all of them may make for the best situation for the short term while we get ourselves through COVID and move forward.
When did you start with the altered traffic plan?
Let me see. I believe the altered traffic plan was implemented probably in the fall. I'm going to say October, November, because we had a police officer up until then. But I'm sorry, I'm being told it was, some of my folks are saying spring is when it happened. But the specific date, if that's something that you really want us to find out for you, we'll get you the specific date.
I'm just curious because several weeks ago, I was on Connecticut Avenue around lunchtime trying to go into Stop and Shop. And I was in the Chick-fil-A lane. You know, there's one whole lane on Connecticut Avenue that's a Chick-fil-A lane. And so leaving only one other lane on Connecticut Avenue for other traffic. And
Well,
so I had to try to get out of the Chick-fil-A lane and into the other lane and then into.
In that
Stop and
section
Shop.
of Connecticut Avenue, there is a right lane, which most people make the right to go to Rampart Road. There's a middle lane, and then there's a left lane, left turn lane. But you're right, when in certain instances, it has been backing down onto Rampart Road and onto Connecticut Avenue, and it does make it difficult for people who are in that right lane who want to continue eastbound. They have to move into the center lane. So we're
Right. So even if you were getting on the highway, you know, you're in that right lane, you want to go up past, stay in that right turn lane, go past Stop and Shop, and then go down onto the highway. So
And at
that,
certain times you have to get in the middle lane and then cut back into the right lane.
yes, exactly. So we had to get out of the Chick-fil-A lane into the other lane and then back into the right-hand lane. So it really is a significant problem. And I was just wondering when you started stacking more cars in the property, because I'd say 3 weeks ago, it was very difficult.
I would submit to all of you, however, that until COVID hit, from when the store opened and the initial grand opening excitement died down, I would say from mid 2017 till the end of 2019, early 2020, we didn't have these issues. At least I was not made aware, nor was my client made aware of significant issues of stacking problems or queuing that was coming out of the site and onto Connecticut Avenue. I do believe that COVID has created a real challenge for us.
I think you're probably right. I do think though that it probably would be helpful, because what it seems to be is that there seems to be two levels of issues. One is the COVID related problem, but at some point this pandemic's going to end. I think then there's the issue of, was there traffic before caused by the same thing, you know, drive-throughs, you know, at the Chick-fil-A? Maybe it wasn't to the extent, you know, that it is now because of COVID, but I don't know if your client could provide some data concerning order volumes, how many orders happened during the peak times and when. I think some facts would be, you know, and data would be better to help us all discuss this with a little more clarity than it being purely anecdotal.
Sure.
Well, the problem here
on that.
The problem here is we're doing committee work. I'm disappointed that you haven't yet hired a professional traffic engineer to work this issue and to come back to us with a workable solution. And that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see you hire, whether it's the folks who did the original traffic study or another firm, go over the problem with them, have them do the analysis, have them come back and address, if at all possible, both of the issue that Mr. Goldstein's raising, the current problem, And if it's determined that there was a problem before COVID, a solution to that problem as well, so that we only have to deal with this one more time. I mean, I think it's wonderful that Chick-fil-A is so successful and so many people want their product, but not at the cost of significant traffic delays to the rest of Norwalk residents driving on that portion of Route 1.
Understood, Mr. Schulman. And part of the problem with coming up with traffic analyses is, aside from just the issue of what's out there today, what are the background volumes, what exists, how did COVID impact background volumes and flow, we have to give a traffic consultant a plan. And we can certainly give them the plan that we have provided and have that traffic consultant evaluate that plan and then see if there are other tweaks or modifications that would be more beneficial. We can certainly do that.
A couple of weeks ago, we were interviewing traffic engineering firms, and Attorney Wells raised this issue with the firms that were being interviewed, saying that we have this problem. One of the suggestions that was made to us is that Chick-fil-A's are so successful that there are similar problems throughout the country where there are tight quarters. So it seems to me that one of the things that a traffic engineer can do for you is take a look at other Chick-fil-A's with similar configurations and perhaps similar problems where they have had an opportunity to resolve those problems. So a little bit of research may go a long way.
Okay. Well, the representatives of Chick-fil-A are also on this call, so they're hearing your comments as well, but we will regroup out tomorrow or the beginning of next week and provide you with as much documentation and factual information as we can.
Okay, terrific. And obviously, the sooner we can all resolve this, the better for us and the better for Chick-fil-A.
Certainly.
And for the better for the people stuck in traffic.
Sure.
Absolutely. Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, thank you for that.
Thank you very much for having us. We appreciate it.
Okay, we only have a couple of more items. We may have time to go out for a drink afterwards.
We could go out.
Right. Steve, can you provide an industrial zone study status report? I know
Sure, and this will be very brief. I actually have a call with the consultants tomorrow, so I'll have more information tomorrow on that. But I anticipate that within the next 2 weeks there'll be a meeting of the committee again, where the consultant's going to provide broader recommendations and their first kind of thoughts on things on where to go. So we're kind of at the stage now where it's going to be really the fun part of the study, where we start looking at recommendations and how to implement them.
Great. Questions or for Steve? Okay, the South Norwalk TOD study.
I believe we have a meeting scheduled for February the 25th at 6:30 on Zoom.
That is, yes, it's a public, open to the public.
Yes.
The consultants are looking for comment from the public.
Can you share or Steve, can you send around the invite for that?
Please.
Yeah, I will send that out.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think we pointed out at our last meetings, there were some issues with the last report of the consultants. They had defined basically the South Norwalk area of the study, which is essentially in and around the railroad station, as all of South Norwalk, including Rowayton and
Phillips Creek.
Yeah. So they've been asked to correct that. And they had left off some important data regarding transit services at the railroad station. And I assume that both of those will be corrected for the meeting on the 25th. Zoning regulations update, the big study.
Yes, so the consultant has been working on the East Norwalk TOD review. We had our first kind of conversation about their thoughts. They had some good points and brought up a lot of things that, small tweaks to fix. And now they're focusing in on the very specifics related to the parking and the amenities, just to make sure that what was proposed is going to work in the long run, because we want something that's actionable. So I expect that should be done within the next 1 to 2 weeks. And then I'll get out a report to the commission to take a look at. And then we can put the document on the agenda for our first discussion and see where we want to go with it.
Sounds good.
And, oh yeah, and the other part is we are in the very final stages of getting the contract signed. They had some requested changes to the contract with the city. I just forwarded those over to the law department, hopefully in the next week. Could be a day, could be a week or so, just to get everybody to agree on the final language.
Okay. Steve, I don't know if you want to talk about workforce housing tonight. Or
since I did not send that out, no, I'll send you guys out a revised document. I've been making some tweaks to the existing language that for discussion purposes. I did talk to the consultant. I said, do you have any concerns if we go ahead and implement some things prior to the zoning rewrite? And they said no, because those kind of things don't significantly impact what their overall planning and scheme is. So they're fine if we go ahead and move things along. They also did say, if ever during the course of the rewrite, there are other changes that come in, they're happy to incorporate that into their workflow and bounce ideas off as we go along.
okay. Next item, approval of minutes of our February 4th meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Frank moves approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Michael seconds. Any comments on the minutes, changes, corrections? All right, if not, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
All right. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, minutes are approved unanimously. Comments of director?
I have nothing further. You got looks like a couple of light meetings for the next 2, maybe 3. And then I think North 7 will keep you busy at some point in time. And I know there are 2 pretty significant projects that are getting ready to submit at the South Norwalk train station, which is kind of exciting what I'll try to do, if I don't do it for your next meeting, I'll do it for the follow-up meeting. I mapped out the SSDD, which was the TOD zone that was approved a couple of years ago around the Norwalk station. I've kind of mapped out all the approved projects, all the ones that are in the hopper, and some of the other assets in the area, so we can kind of see how that is filled in. So I think it's kind of, this case, the work was sort of done previously, but it shows that the process does work if you follow the plan, put the regulations in effect that are consistent with the plan, and the projects come follow. So I think if we follow that formula and put a good product out there, the development community will respond as well.
Okay,
Steve, is there anything to pull forward with the larger rewrite in the next couple of weeks, given that there's a light agenda is coming up?
I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but I mean, they're not at any part of this to
Like,
move
there's nothing
forward.
we can start working on like collectively at this point with the.
No, I'd say that, maybe if you want to just go back and review the preliminary study evaluation that was done by Planometrics a year and a half ago, and just to give yourself a refresher and a framework of some of the concerns that were expressed then. And if you have any other additional things that have come up since that time that you think need to be addressed as part of that, then we can add that to the list.
Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
Comments of any of the commissioners?
Steve, this isn't really a comment, but Steve, if Chick-fil-A, if the people from Chick-fil-A ask, I think in terms of like data, they really should be 2019, 2020 data. Because if they're just saying it's just a COVID thing, then we need a baseline. So in case, I don't think I said that to Liz, to Attorney Suchi. So in case they ask, that's what I was asking. And I don't know if the other commissioners have suggestions or other ideas, but that's certainly what I was thinking.
I
Okay.
agree.
I'll pass that on.
For anyone who didn't hear when I mentioned it, when Nick came on, Nick has been appointed by the mayor as a regular member of the commission.
Yay.
Yeah.
Looking forward to keep
Congratulations.
working. Thank you.
Congratulations, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited.
That's all the business we have, unless there's something else that anyone wants to bring up. If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn at 6:51 PM.
That's
Wow.
unheard of.
Wow.
Move
Moved.
to adjourn.
Josh, can I take that as a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, but give it to Galen. Galen said it.
Okay, Galen makes the motion to adjourn, second.
Second.
Josh seconds. All those in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. See you all on March 4th.
Good. Have a good night.
Have a good night,
Stay
everyone.
healthy.
Good night.
Be well.
Take care.
Bye-bye.